Resolution 12, resolution establishing a select committee on the weaponization of the federal government as a select investigative subcommittee of the Committee on the Judiciary.
That was the clerk of the House of Representatives reading a resolution adopted earlier this week in the House of Representatives that would establish a subcommittee on the Judiciary Committee to investigate the question of whether or not the FBI and other intelligence agencies have conducted illegal activities against the government and or people of the country. The resolution passed on a 220 to 211 party line vote. There were 3 abstentions. Observers invoked the so-called Church Committee from the days of Watergate in the 1970s. This was Representative Tom Cole, Republican from Oklahoma, speaking to the resolution. He serves as the chair of the House Rules Committee.
Similar to the situation that confronted America in the 1970s, in recent years we've witnessed abuses of the civil liberties of American citizens committed by the executive branch. It is undeniable that in recent years the executive branch of the federal government has abused its authority and violated the civil liberties of American citizens, often for political purposes. There are many examples to point to, ranging from a father being labeled a, quote, domestic terrorist, unquote, for confronting a school board over the sexual assault of his daughter, to the federal government's role in suppressing information on Twitter, to the Department of Homeland Security's plans to create a disinformation governance board, and to the revelations regarding the FBI's abuse of its Foreign Intelligence and Surveillance Act authority. All these examples and many more demonstrate how prevalent such abusive actions have become.
Democratic Representative Jim McGovern of Massachusetts expressed the displeasure of Democrats over the formation of the committee in very simple terms.
Mr. Speaker, today we will consider the creation of a new subcommittee here in the House that Republicans call the Select Committee on Weaponizing the Federal Government. I call it the McCarthy Committee.
For more on that, we spoke with Professor Anthony Monteiro, professor of political science at the Saturday Free School of Philadelphia. We spoke with him via Skype on Friday. Professor Monteiro, thank you for sharing your time with us. Now that the speaker has been selected, the committee assignments are being doled out, and Representative Jim Jordan, who has been a articulate opposition voice over the last Congress, is now looking at chairing the Judiciary Committee, if memory serves. And, of course, that's jurisdiction over the FBI. And he announces up front and center, we're going to do a church committee-style committee investigating the use of the FBI as a political weapon against Trump and other abuses. And there's an outcry from the Democrats that, oh, my God, the lunatics are in charge of the asylum. That's basically what they're saying.
Well, first of all, I think we have to make a differentiation between the Democrats' investigation of Trump and January 6th and this Senator Church type investigation of the FBI and, as I understand it, other intelligence agencies
Yes.
of the United States. In other words, what Jim Jordan and those are talking about, literally what the Republicans are talking about, is an investigation of the deep state.
Right.
And this is different than an investigation of a former president,
Right.
or of a president, as in the case of Russiagate. This hits deep. And ironically, as you and I know, having lived through COINTELPRO, and I guess we're still living through it, that the FBI and the CIA, and that's what the Church Committee showed, the CIA was involved in domestic matters, which is illegal. But what they're saying is that the intelligence services are undermining democracy and the rule of law in the United States, and that the Justice Department has become an agency of the intelligence services rather than the FBI working for the Justice Department.
Right. That's right.
This has the potential of being really explosive, of exposing a lot of things. And I think there's a lot to be exposed about the way the FBI and the Justice Department, and one would think the CIA and the National Intelligence Agency and all of those agencies, the way they have gone after Trump. There's nothing like this in history. There is, however, a historical precedent for what Jim Jordan and those are doing with the church committee in the mid-1970s.
Right. You had the church committee essentially was investigating the allegations that were made against Nixon, having used the CIA and the FBI to spy on Democrats and his other political enemies, and used them to help rig the election in 1972 and other things. And this was an investigation to allegedly to put an end to that kind of practice. The charges against Trump were that he was colluding with a foreign power that helped him capture the presidency here. That turned out to be completely debunked in terms of the official review of it and the lack of evidence. And that, in other words, had an external enemy that was challenging the United States. Here now we're finding, and it's being alleged, and we've seen a track record of it, that the actual enemy is the deep state here. There's a permanent government here that has reins of power and all of these agencies at its disposal.
And you know something, Don, and we're dealing in the realm of deep ironies and deep contradictions.
Yeah.
This committee and its hearings might be the real start of the 2024 election.
Right.
In other words,
right.
If Trump runs either as a Republican or as an independent, and I think increasingly, I think people around him and he himself are considering running as an independent, which would really upset the political architecture and the political establishment.
Yeah.
But if he runs as an independent and these hearings are going on, we're looking at something very explosive. We're entering the realm of real politics, that is, politics driven by deep and high ideological questions
right.
of the state.
Right.
I think, in a lot of ways, it's breathtaking that this is happening. And frankly, it has the Democratic Party, the elite of the Democratic Party, and the ruling elite itself fighting on its back foot, where in the 2022 election, interestingly, they were fighting on the front foot, i.e. going forward. But here's the point I want to make. The entire strategy of the ruling elite is to criminalize Trump and a good part of those who vote for him.
Right.
That, in other words, Trump is not just a threat to democracy, quote unquote, but he is a criminal and unworthy of not just being the president again, but even running for office. These committees and these investigations will flip the narrative. And what Jordan is doing, this church-type hearing, is establishing that the intelligence services themselves were involved in illegal and criminal activity. I don't know that I'm making myself clear.
Yes, you are. Yeah, and completely.
The strategy of criminalizing Trump is now going to be flipped, where these hearings will say that the intelligence services themselves are criminal. And that hasn't even gotten us into the realm of Hunter and Joe Biden and all of their dealings in Ukraine and other parts of the world.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, we're going to look at it because we're going to be going into that election season now, any day now. Thank you, Professor Monteiro. We'll speak with you again next week.
Thank you, Don.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.